Hey everyone, Dan here, and wanted to come on and talk about the latest episode of WandaVision. That's right, episode 4, entitled "We Interrupt This Program," and they most certainly do. Wow! If you haven't watched the episode yet, there's wow. I watched it at like 10 after midnight last night, and I'm still just kind of shocked by it. So definitely spoilers ahead. This this is a game changer. So if you haven't seen it yet, go ahead and go. Maybe I should just leave this up because that's going to be no. Wow, yeah, this episode it's a wild one. It starts. This is pretty much Monica Rambeau's episode. That's Monica over there. We've met her in episode 2 as Geraldine, and again in episode 3, where she is the first one to mention anything in the actual MCU proper, being that Pietro was killed by Ultron. And then she suddenly had to leave. And episode 3 ended with her being shot putted out of Westview and into a field where we saw a bunch of military types show up. Well, this tells us everything from the outside point of view. And that's a trick that TV does sometimes, and I absolutely love it. Okay, this is definitely the episode that brings everything back around. Because instead of starting off with the opening credits of some different era sitcom, it's like we take a step away from that. This is not a sitcom episode. There is no cutesy opening. This is not 80s sitcom. We start with the Marvel Studios opening that we get in all the big movies. And then we immediately cut to a hospital room where you see somebody returning from the snap or the blip or whatever you want to call it. Basically, dust forms back into Monica, who is sitting in a hospital room next to an empty bed. And she's just returned after 5 years away and is trying to find out, because to her, she was just there. It's not been 5 years. And her mom is supposed to be in the hospital bed having just had surgery. And Maria, who we met in Captain Marvel, because of course we met Monica as a kid in Captain Marvel, Maria is supposed to be in the bed. So she runs down the hallway trying to find out what's going on, because her mom was just there in her mind, and finally finds someone who remembers her. And it turns out that Monica, she finds out she's been gone for 5 years, and that her mom, surgery was great, but the cancer came back 3 years later, and she died 2 years ago. So now Monica, in the blink of an eye, goes from sitting next to her mom after successful surgery to her mom having been dead 2 years and her losing the 3 years she could have spent with her. So that is A, heartbreaking right there, and B, just an amazing way to open it up, because we've dealt with the return from the blip in Spider-Man Homecoming, but it wasn't like that. We got little hints of it, like Aunt May's apartment had somebody in it and stuff, but we didn't see it. It was more, oh yeah, we're back from the blip. This is actually showing it. She's walking down the hallways in the hospital, and people are reforming after 5 years. That is just freaky, and I would totally love to see more of that. Love to see what some of the, because there's so many questions about, like, what if somebody was flying in an airplane? All of those questions suddenly just reappearing after 5 years. And oh man, that shook me, that opening right there. But after that, they go, and she heads back to her job, which we see on the front here, over there, the Sword logo. She works for Sword, and Sword is basically the NASA version of S.H.I.E.L.D. S.H.I.E.L.D.'s version of NASA. Yeah, we'll go with the S.H.I.E.L.D. version of NASA. And her mom helped found it and was the director of it. And now there's a new guy, Director Haywood, who is played by, let me double check, Josh Stamberg. And He's running it, and he's only running it because Monica disappeared. And she basically, within 3 weeks, she's back and she's trying to get in, and her code's not working. Well, of course her code's not working. It's been just deactivated 5 years ago. But she wants to get back to work, and she, is talking about all the changes, how they used to be more spacebound, and now they're dealing with stuff on the ground, and there's weapons and what's going on. And we find out that her mom put in things about if people returned from the blip, they wouldn't be able to go right back to work and all this other stuff. They won't be able to fly because she's a pilot, obviously. Well, she gets sent on this assignment, a missing person assignment in New Jersey, where she finds FBI agent Jimmy Woo. Jimmy Woo being the guy in the back there, Randall Park. Randall Park, who we last saw in Ant-Man. And I love the fact that when he walks up to give her his card, he does the sleight of hand trick and makes it appear, which means that in the 5 years since Ant-Man, he's been practicing his magic that he started learning in Ant-Man, or Ant-Man and the Wasp. So I love that. Just that little bit there just made me smile. And they're talking to a couple of cops from Eastview who just seem dumbfounded that this guy is even looking for anybody in Westview, because Westview doesn't exist, as they're sitting there next to the sign for Westview. So it's obviously that whatever Wanda's doing, she's affecting everybody with a lot. But for some reason, Monica and Jimmy realize that there was a Westview. So, what the hell? So they take a drone and they're going to fly. But the reason Jimmy's there, the person missing, is somebody in witness protection program. But when Jimmy tried to find out what's going on, even contacted his family, nobody remembered the guy existed. So whatever Wanda is doing is huge. So he requests Sword's help. Sword shows up, Monica, with a drone, this little thing, starts sending it in. It goes certain distance in towards the city, and you could see the city in the distance, or the town in the distance. But as it gets closer, it disappears. Well, it turns out that's the helicopter. The little toy helicopter from the first episode, or second episode. Surprise! It was a Sword drone, not an actual helicopter, like some people thought. Now, Monica gets closer, sees the distortion field that looks like kind of a TV thing, like you're pressing on a TV screen, and she gets sucked in. Well, Jimmy immediately calls for backup, and that brings out all of Sword with a bunch of specialists, including, no one get the name right, I want to say Kat Dennings' character, Darcy Lewis, from the Thor movies. Now, she, of course, is Darcy, and Darcy is great on screen. Kat plays an amazing character, so much fun. And her interactions with Jimmy are wonderful. I think the two of them are great. And they set up the whole base, everything's going on, and they're trying to figure all this out. Well, Darcy realizes there's a signal there, like an old analog or a TV signal. So she gets someone to go get an old TV set, and sure enough, and I don't know if it's because somebody's suddenly watching, but it starts off with the same app where we started off. Now, does that mean that there was stuff going on before she started watching, or did they just start broadcasting once there was an audience, once there was somebody on the outside looking in? There's an interesting one right there. And then you look at, she starts watching, and she is basically watching the episode. So the end of the episode where we see the credits from the first episode, when we watch the first episode, you see the end credits, somebody's watching. That's Darcy, as a lot of us thought. But as they're watching, and they start realizing, wait, that's Wanda Maximoff, and that's the Vision. Why is there a sitcom starring two Avengers? And they're trying to piece all this together. And she realizes that, they might be able to broadcast in through a radio wave that she listens to while doing dishes on the show. And that's, when they realize she's standing next to a radio by the beach, that's when Jimmy starts saying, Wanda, who's doing this to you? So we're seeing all the weird stuff that happened. The beekeeper was a sword agent who was dropped into the sewer lines to go into the town, and his hazmat suit got turned into a beekeeper's suit as soon as he went through the barrier, just like Monica got turned into Geraldine when she went through the barrier. They became part of the reality that Wanda's created. Now, what's interesting is that Monica got brought in where the beekeeper guy just got thrown out. And we don't really actually see what happens to him when she reverses time. Don't know if he just disappears or he's just thrown out of the city. They don't say. They don't cover that. So that's something to follow up on. But so the rest of the episode is them trying to figure it out and piece things together. And we're basically watching it from the outside. And then there's the thing where they realize, oh, that's Monica. And they start watching closer. And then we get to see the scene where she gets thrown out, but we get to see it, the full thing. Not just, oh, she left. We see Wanda lose it and throw her through a wall and across the town and out the barrier and then rebuild the wall. And then when Vision comes in, she hasn't completely rebuilt her fake reality. So when Vision comes in, we see for the first time, this is the Vision's body. And it's still damaged. It's still dead with the giant hole in his head from Thanos. And then she corrects it and makes him look like we've been seeing him. So, and then on the outside, they come up, they find Monica, and the first thing she says is, it's Wanda. She's doing this. So it is just a powerful episode, from connecting all the dots and really just kind of giving us that flip, and where they answered a lot of questions, suddenly there's a lot more. Like, oh, and at one point they have a whiteboard up with all the different people in it. And they're putting up the pictures and then finding out who they really are and referring to them as cast. So, this person is cast as Mr. Hart and this person is cast as this. They don't have everybody up there. So people like Dottie doesn't show up on the wall, who, if you've watched my other video, where I think she's actually Arcana Jones from Squadron Supreme, who else goes by Moonglow. So she's not up there. Agnes is up there with no real identity, so maybe they can't figure out who she is. So it's pretty interesting to see, as this is all unfolding, their side of it, because basically they're doing what we're doing. They're putting the cast up there. They're putting up the questions we're asking. How is the Vision alive? Jimmy writes that on a whiteboard. What's with all the hexagons? Jimmy writes that on the whiteboard. All the questions we have, Sword is asking the same questions. So in a way, we're Sword. We're part of Sword. This is just them showing we and they, the audience, are part of this, in the sense we're doing the same thing Sword's doing. We are Kat Denny, or we are Darcy at this point, or Jimmy. We're them. So that's just phenomenal to me. And then they end with Voodoo Child by Jimi Hendrix. And that's just the themes that go in that song tie into this so well. I am just absolutely blown away by this episode. If you've been, if you watch the first one or second one, like, nah, this isn't for me, or why is Marvel doing a sitcom, or go back, watch all four at once. I think just binge watch all four. It's only about 2 hours, and this episode, where I was enjoying the first three, this is magical in a sense. It just really opens the door for some awesome stuff Wanda is more powerful than we ever imagined, and we know she's the most powerful one in this universe. And just what she can do and what she is doing, the moments that she snaps and then comes back. Also, the vision of Paul Bettany in this, very small role for him. Neither one of them are in it that much, and most of the scenes we've already seen, so it wasn't like new stuff. But there's a moment where he says, maybe we should leave. And she's like, no, 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 this is our home. This is where we live. And I've got everything under control. And she walks away and he turns around. And when he turns around, there's this look on his face like he knows this is wrong. He knows something is wrong. And then he shifts to a smile and just goes right back in. And I don't know if that was him suddenly being manipulated or if he's just playing along now. If he knows that something's wrong, but he's playing along. So, and there's a lot of other things going on now, a lot of speculation. Sunday night, we're going to talk about this. Rosalinda, Dan, and our guest Mike Wellman are going to be bringing this up. And I'm going to pose the questions of, are we supposed to be Sword? How does, the Tease of Grim Reaper we got earlier, does that tie in? And what about the, how is Vision functioning if he doesn't have the stone and he's still dead? What's going on there? There's so many questions going on that, and of course the one I asked earlier, which is, why is it what we saw only happen when Sword started watching? Did stuff happen before that? And Sword gets to see the commercials. That was fascinating. So, yeah, this episode just turned everything up to 11. I think this is something huge, and I can't wait to see what happens next now. I'm in fully. I'm that excited about the series at this point. So, if you haven't watched it and you watched all this, I'm sorry, you probably should have bailed out, but watch it. If you haven't been following the series, you should be, because this is going to be big. This is setting up Phase 4. This is going to be what launches Spider-Man 3, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and is probably going to build out the rest of the universe for us. So stay tuned. But Sunday, right here, wherever you're watching this, come back Sunday night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Join Dan, Rosalinda, Mike, and myself, and we will talk more in depth about this and the previous episode. We're going to do 2 episodes that night, and we'll talk about it. And you guys, you can always comment and jump in. If you have any things you want me to try to cover during it, let me know, and we'll be there. So thanks for watching. It's Friday. Everybody have a great weekend. I posted my Friday Connery on the Facebook page. If you want to see a little-known movie called Operation Snafu, check it out. Otherwise, I will see you all very soon. Have a good evening.